Okay, let's get started. Thank you for coming to our workshop today. My name is Kirsty Skogerbo, and I'm the Assistant Director of Concordia's Writing Studio. And hopefully you know what the Writing Studio is, but if you don't, I'm here to tell you it's a free campus service that we offer to both undergraduate and graduate students. So if you're an undergrad student, we have in-person one-on-one consultations in our writing studio on the Learning Commons floor of the library. And if you're a graduate student, we offer the online writing lab, which has asynchronous one-on-one appointments with our graduate consultants. And both of these are really wonderful opportunities for you to put into practice things that you learn in these workshops, or to have somebody listen to your thoughts or help you brainstorm or refine the organization of your paper. So I hope that you take advantage of those, especially as you're maybe working on a personal statement or a statement of purpose right now. And that is what we're going to talk about today. We want to give you some tools for writing effective personal statements and statements of purpose, because these statements are really your opportunity to show a graduate program who you are and why you're a good fit for the program. Oh, does somebody have a question? No worries, we'll keep going. So let's just start with the basics of personal statements and statements of purpose. Their goal is to give a coherent narrative about who you are as a person and a scholar and researcher. And I think the most important word in this sentence is narrative. This is a story about who you are. It's not just isolated events from your life or isolated research that you've done. You want to choose pieces of information about yourself that all cohere into one story. These statements are meant to paint a picture of your academic career trajectory. So where have you been in your academic career? Where are you now? And where are you going? How do your past, present, and future academic endeavors all work together to bring you to this point of wanting to apply to this program? You want to describe what motivates you and or your research. Graduate school is often a sacrifice of time and usually money as well. So what is it that's motivating you to give up this time, to set aside this time for study? You want to persuade the reviewers of your statement that you and your work match the school or funding agency's mission and that you are a good investment. A school wants to know that your values are the same as their values, that you care about what they care about. And this is a really good chance for you to show them. So you might not understand the difference between a personal statement and a statement of purpose, and that's totally okay. Here's the basic difference between the two. A personal statement focuses primarily on who you are, so things like your background or your interests, why you're interested in graduate study, and what you've done to prepare for graduate school up until this point. And personal statements tend to be more common in the humanities. They're more focused on generally who you are as a person. The statement of purpose focuses more on your research, the past, present, and future research that you have done and that you want to do. Statements of purpose usually discuss your personal motivation for conducting this research and going to graduate school. And these are more common in the sciences. You might encounter different types of prompts when you are writing one of these statements. You might encounter a general comprehensive statement prompt, and this is usually a prompt like, write a personal statement describing your experiences and goals. Very broad, gives you a lot of room for creativity and how you organize your ideas. You might also encounter a prompt that's very specific and that requires you to answer several specific questions. So it's important to be conscious of what kind of prompt you're working with before you dig into writing a lot of your essay. So now that we've talked about the basics of personal statements and statements of purpose, we want to move on to the content. And all content in an essay starts with brainstorming. And the main brainstorming question for this kind of essay is, what made you who you are? And this question can stem from things like personal history, family background, educational experiences, both good ones and bad ones, good and bad professional experiences, leadership opportunities, volunteer experiences, cultural experiences, and previous research projects. All of these things have had some hand in making you the kind of person that you are and the kind of person that wants to apply to this program. My recommendation would be that you work through each one of the elements on this list and just write down the things that come to mind. What are the most significant things that you can think of related to each one of these points? And see what sticks, see what things stand out to you as the most important overall, or the things that fit together into building that coherent narrative that we talked about at the start. If you want some advice on how to do brainstorming, we actually do have a workshop recording on our website called Blank Screen Blues. So you can watch that recording if you want some help with that. We also have some resources in the writing studio. But take some time to just write down ideas related to these topics. Once you have your ideas, I think it's a good idea to outline what you want to say. And this helps you to stay organized in any essay, but there's higher stakes with the personal statements and statements of purpose. So I'd recommend that you outline. Here is a suggested outline if you are only required to submit one essay, either a personal statement or a statement of purpose. So for your introduction, you could start with an anecdote about how you became interested in your field, or you could provide an overview of your academic preparation and why graduate school is the next step towards your goals. And if you remember what we just mentioned about the difference between personal statements and statements of purpose, personal statements tend to focus more on who you are as a person. Statements of purpose tend to focus more on your research. So if you're writing a personal statement, I would recommend focusing on starting with an anecdote. If you're writing a statement of purpose, I think it's a good idea to start with an overview of your academic preparation. In your body paragraphs, then you could mention things like your research experiences, significant projects that you've done, coursework that you've done, particularly in advanced or interesting classes, community service, outreach, employment, if that's related to the program that you want to enter. And again, keep in mind, how do all of these things fit together to tell one story? Is this a place where I want to focus more on my research? Is it a place where I want to focus more on communicating what kind of person I am? And that all of those things will influence what you decide to include, but these are some good options. And then your conclusion is a good place to ask why this school is specifically a good fit for you. Some applications are going to require you to do both a personal statement and a statement of purpose. And if that's the case, here are some sample outlines that you can follow. For your introduction for the personal statement, you can start with an anecdote about how you became interested in your field. Your body paragraphs could include examples of how your interests and goals developed. They could include community service, outreach, or employment, and then coursework that's relevant. And then in your conclusion, you could discuss how this graduate degree will help you achieve your goals. In your statement of purpose, you could start then with the overview of your academic preparation, why graduate school is the next step for you. Your body paragraphs could include research experiences, significant projects, coursework that's relevant, and relevant employment. And then your conclusion could focus on why this school is specifically a good fit. So I would recommend trying, if you do have to write 2 essays, try to keep the information distinct in each, decide which details of your life are more relevant for each one of these essays. The most effective statements offer concrete examples of ideas rather than cliche phrases. It's important to keep in mind that the people who are reviewing your statement will be reading many others too. So how can you set yours apart? And one way that you can do that is by providing concrete examples. So avoid vague generalities like this statement. I want to become a teacher because I want to help people. Anybody could write that sentence. You want to focus on what makes you interesting and different and unique. So for example, why is helping people important to you specifically? What in your life has resulted in this value that you have? Why is being a teacher the best way for you to help people? Why not something else? So choose specific concrete examples that show how you are learning and growing, as well as demonstrating your passion and commitment. And this is important because graduate schools want to see not just that you have already arrived, that you already know everything that you need to know. They want to know that you are the kind of person who's committed to continuing to learn, to continuing to grow and develop. So for example, instead of saying, I'm passionate about the environment, you could say, I've spent 3 years working as a volunteer during Earth Day events. I conduct youth workshops and lead nature walks, introducing children to the ecosystem of a frog pond and the impact their presence has on the natural world. I don't think the reviewers would read that sentence very many times, right? That's going to stand out because it's a specific example of how this person is learning and growing in the thing that they are passionate about. In addition to offering concrete examples in your statement, you also need to establish concrete significance. So don't just restate your resume or your CV in a narrative form or simply describe the events. Instead, explain how those events influenced and motivated you. What was the influence that they had? And this relates to the so what question. Every time you write something, you want to be able to have an answer to somebody who says, so what? Why does that matter? Your reader should be able to identify why the things that you're saying are important. So for example, you could ask yourself, how did this experience advance my development as a person or as a scholar? How did it confirm my interest in my field of study? How did it contribute to knowledge in my field, my department, the university, and the broader community? How does it match the organization's goals? These are all, again, kind of related to brainstorming, questions that help writers figure out what is the upshot of the things that I'm talking about. Frequently, you're going to be asked to state why your research matters or why your field of study matters. And it's important to not go too big with this. So maybe you do want to cure cancer or solve world hunger, but realistically, you're probably not going to do that. This question is closely related to questions about why you want to do this research or study this subject. You want to keep the focus on what you specifically, you as an individual, want to and can do. This doesn't have to be something world-changing or an argument about why art matters, right? Those are really big ideas. Being realistic is completely okay and even preferable. So what do you specifically find interesting about your topic or field? Why is this something worth studying? And how will your research contribute to your field? Why would others in your field be interested in it? Research is something that comes in small pieces, and the small pieces that each person contributes are the things that eventually lead to solving big problems. But it's okay to have a very particular goal in your research. But what if I'm boring? And I think anybody who's trying to write an essay, maybe just like the essay that you wrote to get into your undergrad school, or if you've had to write an essay in applying for a job or things like that, it can be difficult to write about yourself, especially if you feel like you've lived a pretty ordinary life. But the point isn't to sound sensational. The point is to be yourself. You are the one who is going to attend this school and study. The reviewers want to know who that person is. So don't try to sound like somebody else. Your personal statement should reflect who you are. And obviously you want to present yourself at your best, but you still want to present yourself. So don't pretend to be somebody that you're not. And don't try to second guess the reviewers and try to sound like what you think they want you to sound like. They want you to answer the question. So be confident in the person that you are and the experiences that you've had. Don't feel bad about that. If you do have things about your life that are unique or that reflect diversity, that is something that you do want to mention. Many organizations want to admit or fund a diverse pool of applicants. So for example, if you come from an underrepresented background, you want to mention that. It's good to know that diversity doesn't just mean ethnic diversity. It can also mean a diversity of experiences. So for example, are you the first in your family to go to college or to graduate school? Did you take a non-traditional route to college? Are you part of an underrepresented group in your field? Does your research focus on or benefit an underrepresented group? What are your experiences with diverse groups of people, maybe in volunteer activities that you've done, or at school or in your community? There are a lot of different ways that you can demonstrate diversity in your own life, or connections that you've had with diversity, that you've had experience with that. It's possible that you might lack experience in the field that you want to do research in, or that you maybe have a poor GPA, or that you've taken a non-traditional route to academia, and that's okay. It's important to acknowledge that, but also don't spend too much time on it in your statement. So avoid long, complicated explanations of what happened and why it happened. Don't offer apologies or justifications for what happened. Simply state that the problem exists, and then focus on what you did to move past it and overcome it, because the point shouldn't be that the problem happened. The point should be how you were able to work through that problem. And that can demonstrate good character and good growth. So here are some examples of how you could do that. Although I began conducting research relatively late in my undergraduate career, I have begun working with Dr. Smith on his frog project. My responsibilities include ... Or despite some academic missteps during my freshman year, I received top marks in my upper division courses. I also began conducting research under the supervision of Dr. Smith, etc. So how do you get started with this? Maybe writing a personal statement or statement of purpose is intimidating, maybe it's not, but either way, these are some good steps for getting started. Talk to professors and advisors that you trust. Professors are a wonderful resource because they've all gone through graduate school. They've all had to do these applications, and they care about their students. They care about your academic future. So if there is a particular professor that you have a good rapport with, I would recommend talking to them, sharing your rough drafts with them, and getting their advice on the whole application process. If you know any graduate students, ask if they would be willing to share some of their materials with you. Maybe they can show you their application essays or give you tips on the process, or maybe they applied to the same school that you're applying to, and they can give you some insider information. That's another great resource. It's also important to research the school where you're applying. So be familiar with what their mission is. Again, we mentioned schools care that you care about what they care about. So one of the ways that you can do that is by knowing how they actually phrase those values that they have, and even recognizing what keywords they use to describe themselves. It's not manipulative to figure out what those words are and see if you can incorporate those into your essay. That's just showing that you are invested and that you're using the information that's available to you to show them that you're interested. And then finally, use writing support services, even if you're a strong writer. And here's where the writing studio comes in. You can make an appointment as many times as you want at any stage in the writing process for your personal statement or statement of purpose, or any other paper that you're working on. And I would truly recommend, if writing is something that you do feel comfortable with and you think you're good at, don't let that turn you away from seeking feedback. Feedback is really important for any writer. All of the best writers have sought out feedback. So please take advantage of that. We are here to help you. And I hope that this workshop is helpful. If you have questions, I'm happy to stick around. Otherwise, you're free to go. But good luck as you fill out your applications and as you think about this next step in your academic career.
Thank you.
Absolutely.